Mothman. Moth? Man. So today we'll be making this cute little guy known as Mothman out of polymer clay. Mothman is what's known as a cryptid, and if you're like me and you watched these types of shows,
there are creatures science refuses to recognize.
Something's got a hold of his mind. I don't know what it is. There's evil in these woods right here.
This Bigfoot is communicating some way or another with these chupacabras.
Mothman.
or any of those early YouTube videos that were like,
Top 10 spookiest cryptids. Number 10, Leech Boy. Number 9, Gary Busey.
then you probably have a good idea of what Mothman is, and for those of you that don't, I'll give you the rundown because he is one of the cooler cryptids out there compared to others. The legend of Mothman generally is traced back to the quaint countryside town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is apparently home to pro wrestler Ray, the Crippler, Stevens. See, you know something's already off in this town if it produced this. Anyway, the Chronicles of Mothman go all the way back to November 15th, 1966, where some scallywags were driving around in the middle of the night when they encountered a 7-foot-tall, winged creature in their headlights, with a juicy pair of hypnotic, glowing red eyes. And so, like anyone after seeing this, except for maybe the Crippler, they got spooked by this spooky guy and sped off into the night, to which the creature responded by making a wonderful little ear-splitting screech and then spread some big-ass wings and took flight after the car, following them in a high-speed chase to the outskirts of town where it flew off. The occupants of the car then went to the police to report this, except for Jared, who stayed because he shot himself. These reportings were put into the town paper, and afterwards numerous new reportings of the creature start pouring in from all over town. One guy said it was responsible for weird noises on his TV and his dog disappearing. There were a group of gravediggers that said they had seen some guy just flying around the sky on a recent job, stuff like that. Rumor had it at the time in Point Pleasant that Mothman's, territory, his fortress of solitude, was at a defunct World War II ammo factory, locally known as the TNT area, which has a lot of potential implications. Maybe Mothman was just an angry veteran upset about the state of the VA. We don't know. But PTSD aside, think about the name Mothman for a moment. It has a certain moth superhero type connotation to it. Personally, it makes me think of that one SpongeBob episode.
Get ready to hear the moth scene from Nightlight Season 5 episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. The moth.
Savory light, come to me. Here's another 57 here.
Okay, first of all, no, SpongeBob Mothman. Mermaid Man is like 80, you're not seeing him again. And second, Mothman originally really wasn't like this at all. He actually had very little in common with, a moth. The similarities basically stop at flight. He didn't run around bashing his head into streetlights or lamps. Based off all the reportings, he was more like a large bird man, and some people even referred to him as the Big Bird during this time. The name Mothman actually came from some guy, probably like the town shaman, that read a comic book about Batman fighting a supervillain called Killer Moth. Oh, sorry, this one. And since the name Big Bird was obviously meant for greater things, Mothman just stuck. So, keep in mind that for the town of Point Pleasant, this wasn't just some weekend of paranoia. This was something that apparently went on for months. I mean, they weren't letting kids outside for recess. Everyone's exchanging their experiences, talking with everyone else. I imagine the Crippler himself was standing on top of a bell tower with his shirt off challenging Mothman to a duel. And that's fine, but all the chaos does lead to a certain climax. And I think this is a good point to say that, as a young lad, Mothman was one of the few cryptids that legitimately freaked me out a little bit. And you might be thinking, well, what made me so uneasy? Was I traumatized by moths or something? No, that was consensual. The part that freaked me out is what happens on December 15th, 1967, exactly 13 months. Hey, possibly to the second, after that first reported Mothman encounter. This is when the town's local bridge, known as the Silver Bridge, super creative name, maybe they got that one from a Batman comic too, collapsed, which actually ended up being a huge disaster, ending the lives of nearly 50 people. And given the current affairs at the time, some attributed this bridge collapse to Mothman, as sightings of him were claimed to have been witnessed on the bridge just before the collapse. And most people that know about Mothman, even a little bit, have heard about this event, because this is really how he got his reputation. Like, being a flying furry is scary enough, but because of this tragedy, it was assumed that his very presence causes some kind of horrible catastrophe, like the bridge collapse in Point Pleasant. He's a bad omen. He's kind of like the guy from Godzilla 2014, you know, just anywhere he goes, there's some catastrophe that follows him, even if it has no reason to be there. This theory was later popularized by author and aggressive smiler Gray Barker. And while sightings died down after the bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, Mothman graduated from a town legend to more of a worldwide one, where there's been many alleged appearances of him preceding other large disasters, including some pretty major ones like Fukushima and Chernobyl. And there's sightings of him that go on to this day. There's been kind of a large number of reports in the Chicago area for the past few years, so watch out for your being, guys. Protect it at all. What I think is kind of interesting are recorded sightings of Mothman-like creatures that go pretty far back. One I found was over 200 years before all the original Point Pleasant events, where the day before some major battle in Europe, it said eyewitnesses saw a gigantic black harpy-like creature with burning red eyes and leathery wings fly over one side's army. From what I found, this creature was referred to as a scree, and as you can probably conclude, the men that the creature flew over all got completely slaughtered. The Houston Batman of the 1950s fit a similar description to Mothman, except this one obviously had parents that were shot in a dark alley. The Cornish Owlman is another, kinda, that one's more just a big owl. The skeptics among the audience may be wondering if there's some, actual evidence of this moth guy. Well, my dear and naive viewers, of course there's evidence. You're probably a fool for even asking. This irrefutable evidence is a photo taken by a Point Pleasant resident and distributed by WCHS-TV just a few years ago. Now, if you look closely at this photo and examine with keen eyes this artist's recreation done by yours truly, you may notice that his legs are slightly misaligned. After consulting theories with a medical professional who chooses to remain anonymous, we have determined that Mothman, in his advanced age, may be suffering from an extreme form of osteoporosis. This slight leg damage may have provided the edge needed to capture such a rare and beautiful photograph of the Mothman. I hate to say it, but there's some resemblance here. But these days, like many other strange and confusing humanoid creatures, Mothman is now somewhat of a staple in pop culture. There's even multiple movies of varying quality about him. One of them, which I just feel the need to mention, was one of those Sci-Fi Channel movies that I was watching at like 3 a.m. one night a few years ago, which involved some old blind guy with a shotgun hunting Mothman for, I guess, taking his eyesight or something a few years ago. I really don't remember. It only comes back to me in intense involuntary flashbacks. But I was mesmerized. It's definitely a must-watch for any Mothman enthusiast. And that's kind of the vibe Mothman has these days. Not the shotgun thing, but like in Point Pleasant today, those maniacs actually celebrate and have fun with the thing that, 360 no-scoped their bridge. They've got an annual festival, lots of tourists, questionable cosplay, a Mothman museum, and a statue of him in the middle of town, which that's actually really cool. It's basically like a real-world Gravity Falls, without Dipper. Even so, I like to imagine there's at least one guy that has to drive past that statue every day for work or something, and he just grumbles to himself every time he sees it, like, damn moth breaks a bridge, and everyone loves him. I destroy public property, and what do I get? Community service. So, is Mothman really an entity to be feared? Is he actually causing all these disasters he appears at? Or is he just a nice guy with social anxiety and a speech impediment, trying to warn the masses about these things? I don't know. All I know is I'm afraid I might be walking down the street one night, and then I see him sitting on, like, a street light, and he points his arm at me, and he shakes it at me like, you, and then my house burns down. That's a fear we all have to live with, but it's a fear that I will face right now by making my own Mothman. Anyway, now that we're all up to speed, I want you to know that this is going to be my own interpretation of Mothman, which means I'm going to design this wonderful abomination of nature in accordance with what I think is cool and snazzy, as opposed to a Mothman that's just as accurate as possible to the agreed upon Mothman lore. Not that there's much agreement there anyway. I'm going off an assortment of little concept designs I made during the research process. We'll see if I stick to them or not. There are plenty of theories out there as to what people think Mothman actually is. Alien, secret government experiment, Grim Reaper, mutated owl, Native American curse, ghost of Michael Jackson. Personally, I view Mothman as some sort of force of nature beyond our understanding, or even like an entity from a different realm. So that view will probably impact the sculpture in some capacity going forward. Alright. Everyone knows that a clay Mothman first needs a good skeleton. It's hard to be intimidating if you're all floppy. Yeah. And we do that using this nice armature wire here. What I'm doing here is adding some nice general arm and leg shapes until it looks like a little guy, a small man if you will. This will eventually be the wings, and it's kind of important that it's attached to the main body right now because it's going to make the wings a lot stronger later on, which is going to be necessary because the wings will be heavy. And as you can see, the entire sculpture is pretty much done already. No need to really go any further, just some finishing touches. Oh, look at those moves! But now it's time to give this skeleton some aluminum muscle. If you're wondering why I'm using aluminum here, it's because A, it makes the final product a little bit lighter and more stable in the oven, and B, I don't know if you can tell, but you can probably hear the $20 Walmart mic I'm using. Alright, funds are in fact an issue, and clay is kind of pricey, so using the aluminum allows me to use less clay. Alright, and those thighs are most definitely not saving any lives, but once he looks like Chuck from Better Call Saul, we are able to provide him with some glorious clay flesh. I want to start off with a lovely light gray dead corpse looking color. And there we have our skin tone. Very lovely. Now we're ready to simply apply the clay to the figure. You might notice that I'm avoiding the wings. That's because that's a whole headache I'm going to save for later. At this point he looks like a nice guy, perhaps his name would be Derek, but now we begin the long process of turning him into a horrifying creature. Hold on a moment, we've forgotten to put on his shoes. Okay, perfect. From what I've seen through various documentaries and interviews about Mothman, there's a lot of people that say that he has just like a regular man's pair of legs, as opposed to that one picture we have of him. So yeah, we'll give him some nice legs. He'll look good in shorts for the summer season, don't worry. And listen guys, if we can get serious for a moment, there's perhaps one aspect of Mothman that's more important than everything else that I've failed to bring up until now. Some of you may know what I'm about to say. If you go to Point Pleasant, they have their famous Mothman statue in the center of town. And yeah, that's pretty badass, but the creator of this statue, for whatever reason, decided to bless Mothman with, well, a pretty badass. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, I think it's important that we pay homage to this original Mothman sculptor because I don't know his name. I'll put his name up if I can find it, but he obviously had a vision. Alright, that aside, this is how we're looking now. He's a little beefier, a little more imposing. Next up is working a bit on those noodle arms. I actually like how they're a bit skinny. It adds to the creepiness factor, I think, but they definitely need to be more defined. I also like how they're just kind of limply hanging down, so I'm going to stick with that sort of posture. It kind of gives the impression that he's focused on something. Okay, and the arms seem about good enough now. They're in a place that I like. I've been pretty uncertain about what to do with the head so far. I don't know how humanoid really I should go with it. Should I go full insectoid? Do I give it a chin? The only really defining feature of Mothman's face are his big red eyes. The rest is relatively featureless and kind of open up for interpretation. So I want to make a face that's similar to a human, but different enough to where you know it's definitely not human. Kind of that uncanny valley type area. Gosh, looking back at it now, I may have given him too much junk in the trunk. I don't know how he's gonna fly with that thing. Anyway, as you can see, I've got kind of an elongated head xenomorph type thing going on, which I think helps just a bit with the whole uncanny idea. And I'm going with kind of a chin, but I'll make it more weird later. As for the neck, I have an idea for that later too. Moving on to the back, I've decided that 4 wings will probably look a little cooler than 2, so I'm adding these 2 little stumps for the 3rd and 4th wing. If you're thinking, how's that going to work without the wire in it? That's a good thought, and probably one I should have thought of too. That will make dealing with them much harder in the future, but oh well. I'm also adding some stumps to the upper 2 wings to serve as a nice base for them. I also want to make the back just generally a little bit more defined, add kind of a spine that sticks out a little bit, makes it all creepy. I thought this little neck fold thing would be a good idea. It reminds me of the Valve guy. So I don't know if this will end up being a big mistake or not, but I thought the idea of some sort of chest cavity would be cool. Why? Well, it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of stories of Mothman screaming or shrieking. And to any rational thinking human being, that may be a confusing statement. But don't worry, we're gonna stay confused because I think now is a good time to mention one of those Mothman-like creatures that I didn't talk about before. The Freiburg Shrieker. This was an entity from Germany in the 70s that fit a similar description to Mothman, and prevented a group of miners from entering a mine by standing at the entrance and, you guessed it, shrieking. And I guess the miners were just kind of fairly unbothered by this because they decided to, instead of run away, just keep working by tidying up around the mine. So they just tidy up for an hour, I guess rolling their eyes at the abomination of nature at the entrance of their cave, until there's a big explosion that comes from inside the cave. The miners go check, the creature is gone, and if any of the miners had entered that cave, they would have died. Which is like textbook Mothman. He shows up and then a big disaster happens. But this one's kind of cool because it's clearly benevolent. Anyway, I say this because Mothman and shrieking go together. Even in some of the original Mothman reports, he's shrieking or screaming. So I think Mothman should be able to shriek. But I think it takes away from the creepiness factor from a Mothman that's just staring blankly at you if there's a big gaping mouth on his face. So I wanted his screams to come from someplace a little more foreign. Hence the large stomach cavity that I may or may not add a tone to. We'll see how it goes. If Full Metal Alchemist can do it, so can I. Oh, and the Freiburg Shrieker has nothing to do with his stomach cavity specifically. I just really like that story. Alright, so now I've got him a little bit more refined and in a state I like. I've put some faint musculature all over the body, and now it's time to go into some detail work. We'll start by giving the skin a little bit more variety using a darker shade of gray clay. In nature, animals will often have a darker shade of fur or skin on the top of their bodies compared to their lower bodies. This can act as a form of camouflage, since any skylight hits the exposed dark parts, while shaded body parts are lighter, helping the animal to be more uniform in shade overall. And Mothman has anxiety around people, you know, he wants to stay as hidden as possible. I'm trying to make it fairly subtle, however, with a very thin, patchy layer of clay. Oh, and look at that, we have some nice skin variety now. That was probably way too much work for something so subtle, but oh well. Now we can really get into more of the detail work. I'm really liking the look of the spine on his back, so I'm just gonna fully commit to it and really add some detail. We'll start by making the spine a little bit more grotesque, like to the point where he is just unable to sit in a chair normally. Having all the little vertebrae parts sticking out is just a wonderful way to accomplish this. Observe. Alright, that is a backbone. Reminds me of those Pacific Rim suits. Anyway, now we have the responsibility of making all the bases of these wings nice and pretty like the backbone as well. We're going to have 4 wings total, but the top 2 wings are going to be much bigger than the bottom 2, almost like a moth. So while I'm working on these lean juicy wing muscles, delicious, I'm just going to scooch these out of the way just a bit. Alright, so these top ones are looking pretty nice. They're in a place I like, so now I just have to do the same thing with the bottom ones. Oh, little more scooching. I personally like these weird looking tendon things. They make me happy. And as you can see, we're really starting to get all these muscles and back details to come together now. It's got kind of a nice raw flesh type of thing going for it. I think it's good. These here are what we in the business refer to as exposed tendon holders. A very much imperative device when sculpting any exposed tendons, especially for cryptids. You see, you just take your little tendon guy, put them in the holders, and you got yourself an exposed tendon. It's really that simple. Plastic wrap is really good for adding texture. I want to have kind of a wrinkly approach to the wing muscles here, and the plastic wrap really helps with making the wrinkles more uniform on clay rather than looking scratchy. However, scratchy can be good too, so. Now I just want to add a couple more little details to the back area. I thought some little horn things in this area would be nice and kind of bring it all together. And with that, we have our gorgeous back, ready to show off for swimsuit season. Which reminds me, an important rule of life, adding a few veins only ever enhances art, no exceptions. These veins will pretty much be unnoticeable by the time this is finished, but I'll at least be able to sleep soundly at night knowing that they're there. I'd like to take a brief intermission to show you all a cactus I bought today. It's been declawed so it doesn't scratch up the couch. Alright, back to Mothman. Just following the one rule I live by. More veins. More veins. Alright, so now the front of the sculpture looks a little bit plain compared to the back, so I thought I'd do something similar to how I did the backbone, and make the ribs really stick out in kind of a weird and gross manner, as well as some pointy bits sticking out along the edges of the rib cage just to break up the monotony. And at this point, I'm pretty much committing to a very decrepit looking Mothman rather than any kind of big and bulky one. I guess it just looks a little creepier to me that way. And in my mind, Mothman's a pretty creepy guy. Alright, now back to my weird stomach cavity idea. Remember how I was considering adding a tongue to it? Well, I have deemed it necessary to do so. I'll stick with this grayscale theme that we've had going on and turn it into a long, weird, one may even say moth-like tongue. Wonderful. Gene Simmons would be proud. But before I do anything with that, I'd like to make the cavity a little more interesting. I really don't know how or why my recording did this for this specific shot here. I think Mothman may have cursed my camera, but I'm keeping it in because it's fascinating. As you can see, our good friend Mothman's vertebrae has made a reappearance, so everyone say hello to him. And I've made some little holes around the outer edge here. Now let's just make it a little more internal organy, and then we'll be able to put in the tone, and it'll look all nice. Mothman will be able to sing like Frank Sinatra. It'll be great. To complete the chest area, we're going to need to make some nice little rib teeth things. Because, really, what's the point of having a mouth in your chest if you're not going to have some weird rib teeth things as well? Ready for a nice smooch. And also, I realize this isn't like the classic Mothman appearance. I'm kind of having fun with it and doing my own thing. But if you find my creative liberties annoying, it'll hopefully be obscured or at least blend in a little bit better once I add some hair. Okay, now we're getting to the good parts. It's common knowledge that every Mothman needs a lovely pair of hands and feet, otherwise their self-confidence will get hurt. Confidence is key when allegedly causing national disasters, my friends. So we're gonna give our guy here some beautiful toes and fingers that even salad fingers would be jealous of. Just want to take a quick moment here to say that this looks like a squid. That's all. We got some hands. Alright, yeah, woohoo, wahoo. I'm gonna give him thumbs because I've decided he deserves to use door handles. Alright, thumb, get off, get off, get off, get up! They're gonna be some weird, like, wrist thumbs, though. Why? I don't know, I just think it looks neat. Wasn't honestly a huge fan of it at first, but it's growing on me. I do always enjoy making hands, especially long, creepy ones like these fine specimens. Alright, guys. Feet. He's obviously in need of a pedicure. Alright, let me just clip off the old toenails there. Alright, oop, got a little rust on your foot. That's alright. This is a man's pedicure. Alright, back to it. So after shaping the feet so much, I've quickly come to the realization that this sculpture is going to need a nice little base to stand on so that it doesn't fall over, which may or may not have happened off camera. So we're going to make a little base real quick. Nice. Now we're obviously going to need some little foot knuckle thing guys too. Here I'm adding just like a couple little withered away areas that expose the bone inside. I thought it was neat. Feet. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now we do the most important part of the whole sculpture. Those big, beautiful, succulent red eyes.
Nice.
Fun fact, it's said that looking directly into Mothman's eyes causes paranoia and all sorts of trauma later. So don't look too close. I've always held the belief that eyes are often the most important part of any sculpture, or drawing really for that matter. The entire intent of the artwork can change with just a small deviation to the form of the eyes. With Mothman specifically, the eyes don't pose too much difficulty, since there's no pupils or irises to worry about. It's pretty much just solid red, at least in my version I'm making. But it's still like his defining feature. If you show someone a fuzzy black blob with red eyes, there's a good chance they'll say, that's Mothman. So care does have to be taken with this part, so I don't accidentally make him lovable anime side character Mothman, instead of creepy guy who hates bridges Mothman. I'm trying to go for an expression where he's just kind of blankly staring or focused on something. It kind of looks like the lizard man from Land of the Lost, and I'm gonna assume that's a good thing. So we're going to perform another controversial move here. No, not that. Stop it. I've had enough of you. You see, Mothman generally in media is depicted as this humanoid thing without much of a neck. He's usually got that classic thumb appearance. There's still lots of depictions of him with a neck, but I'd say it's like 70% thumb Mothman, 30% neck Mothman. But in a lot of documentaries, there will be supposed witnesses of Mothman that just swear by him having a neck. They'll be like, yeah, if you get a close enough look, you'll definitely see it. It's definitely there. He has a neck. And I really hope that in Point Pleasant on the weekends sometimes people just get drunk at 1 a.m. and argue about whether Mothman has a neck or not. The struggle of these neck supporters inspires me, and so I choose to believe that Mothman does indeed have a neck. However, I like the idea of a neck that you don't necessarily notice at first glance. So I've decided to approach this duality of neck with the wonderful and stylish idea of adding large disgusting skin folds near the head area, in kind of a hood-shaped fashion that's a little bit ambiguous between neck and no neck. And I'm really not sure how to not make it look completely stupid, so we'll see how it goes. It does kind of have that Grim Reaper vibe, but now the time has come to shape up the face. Just a little bit. Like I said, I want to keep it relatively featureless. I basically just want it to have some very subtle, weird features. Perform some minor plastic surgery, and something like that is fine. I'll change it if I ever come back later and decide I hate it. I wasn't gonna add any, like, moth antenna or anything to it, but I was looking at pictures of this thing called the Stygian owl, and its little horn things just look too perfect not to add. And yeah, there's a good chance that a lot of Mothman sightings were actually one of these owls, or a similar owl. There's literally stories of people hunting them because they think they're evil or demons. Their eyes normally aren't red like this. The light has to hit them a certain way for it to appear like that. But yeah, if I saw this in a tree, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, so there's a demon in my yard. And then I'd go inside and watch, like, Wii Sports videos until I feel better. Anyway, he's looking a bit too naked. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how do we fix this problem? May I present to you the Mothman hair feather thing. I'll just let this next clip speak for itself. Yeah, this was fun, but I'm sure it'll be even more fun and not tedious at all to put these on Mothman's body. Alright, enjoy.
12 o'clock midnight.
I really didn't want these arm things to be lonely. It was keeping me up at night, so I made some leg ones too. And I've decided that they are horns. Arm horns, leg horns, horns. And I touched up the arm ones as well. I swear his ass got flatter. How did his ass get flatter? Now let's touch up that stomach too. That's something. There are organs of some sort in there. Now I want to just clean up the body a little bit, add some nice scratchy scratches. So we've got these kind of odd large black patches that stand out a bit. And my hope is that I can kind of gradually blend smaller hairs into the skin around these areas to make it look much more natural. And you know what that means. Behold, body hair. And I have also supplied him with a child. Ugh. It's still kind of patchy, but it'll do. I can't do any more hairs. I can't do it. Alright, now let's save our progress and bake. To the igloo. There we go. It fell in the oven, almost a disaster. Miraculously, the only thing that was damaged was this one spike. I'm a professional, don't worry, moving on. Wings. Alright, we gotta give our boy here some wings. I don't really know what I was doing here. I think I was just excited to make wings. As you can see, the wings will actually be pretty big compared to the current body. And I'll be using clay that's a little bit darker than the original skin tone because I think it'll have a nice contrast. It's super subtle here, but it'll become a lot more apparent as I go down the frame of the wing. I thought it would look nice to sort of extend those muscles that I made at the base of the wings up a certain amount towards the top of the wings. And this is the type of sculpting that I probably have the most fun with, where I can just make all these different forms and add all the details I want. It's good stuff. Here I wanted to make some cool looking horns that connect to the top of the wings and then hang over Mothman's head. Here's some anxiety for you guys. Aren't they nice? Now for the actual wing part of the wings. I devised a bit of a strange method for measuring them out. And this is a super scuffed way of doing it. There's probably much better methods. But you can see I've sort of made a wing prototype, then transferred that rough draft of a wing onto the table to blend it all together. This way, I can add details to it easier. I want some nice elegant wings that look a bit sinister towards the ends. I also made a second one. I made a guy. Alright, one more little detail thing, and we're ready to put it on. It feels like a very fragile pizza slice. So, one problem I had with the method I used was while I was smoothing out the wing on the table, the wing expanded while I smoothed it and then didn't fit on the frame right. So I had to partially attach the wing and then kind of reassess. But eventually I was able to fix it and get everything fairly seamless. And once everything's attached and good to go, we can really polish up these two wings with some nice detail. These vertebrae looking things that go up the wing were for some reason just such a pain to make. They seem simple, but I could not get them looking the way I wanted them to. But I eventually got them looking alright. Now, if you'll recall, this bad boy still needs 2 more wings. These two, however, are going to be a lot smaller and kind of folded in. Other than that, making these is going to use a pretty similar method as the first wings, you know, aside from redoing half of it. And these wings are honestly a breeze compared to the first 2 bigger ones. They're just a lot easier to handle and manipulate. Look at that, already done with the frames. This time, I actually do want these wings to expand as I'm smoothing them out, and I even put extra clay on this portion of the wing so that they would really do that. The reason for this is, like I mentioned before, because I want to fold them in on themselves and have them kind of scrunched up against the back.
Another!
We're just gonna put a very subtle little area of red here to kind of match Mothman's eyes. I thought it would just be a nice little detail to add. It kind of looks like a wing dipped in ketchup. I like it. Couple horns for these wings to match the ones on the other wings. These ones I'm making a bit more black than the first 2. Why? And now we have a bit of a problem. I'm not sure how to attach these to the body. I really probably should have provided a method to do this earlier on. So while I stew on that for a moment, I'm just gonna add some gross little hairs to the wings. Like so. I have designed this grand apparatus to hold the wings in place. I really went all out with the engineering with this one, so when I bake it, it should keep everything very stable and hopefully nothing goes wrong. The wings fell, almost a complete disaster. I used super glue. Super glue fixed everything. Don't worry about it, I'm a professional. Moving on. On an unrelated note, I found that I can make the eyes all shiny with a 2-part epoxy. Look at that shine. I usually don't paint my stuff, and I'm probably not very great at it, so I'm just going to do some very minimal touches. Please feel free to criticize my terrible painting skills with any colorful language that you'd like down in the comments below. I want to put just a little bit of black paint around the hairy areas to make it seem like there's just a little extra scruff that blends more into the skin. Here's a little comparison shot. You can kind of see the difference it makes here. I'll make the spiky areas a bit more pretty, apply some mascara. And I know it's subtle, but I really do like the work that this paint is doing. And, there we go. There's the little harbinger of doom right there. And now Now there's only one thing left to do. We must present it. To who, you may ask? To the one. To the one. And now, we wait for judgment. Whoa, did you see that? Play that back. Rewind the tape. Play that back. We've done it. We've done it. The statue has been accepted by the one. The one has accepted our statue. This whole thing has been a success. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. So I think the Mothman statue turned out pretty good. It's not perfect or anything, but I had a good time making it. My turtle liked it, so that was cool. And I do want to genuinely thank anyone that's for some reason watched the video to this point. It took a lot longer to make this video than I expected, and it became a much longer video than I expected, but hopefully it's still bearable to watch. I'm the kind of person where I'll get a lot of ideas, but I usually won't follow through with them to completion, but with this project I did, and that makes it kind of special to me. So for that reason, I really do just genuinely appreciate anyone at all that's watched this video. And maybe it's not a good idea for the first video on my channel to be about a cryptid that straight up represents a bad omen, but oh well, I like Mothman. He's a swell guy. There will for sure be more cryptid sculpture videos in the future. I love cryptids, I love horror, all that kind of weird stuff. As well as videos about whatever other stupid random stuff I feel like making at the time. Videos will also definitely be shorter in the future than this. This was kind of ridiculous. To any people that have watched this, feel free to leave some feedback. I'd also really love to hear about any Mothman stories anyone may have. That'd be cool. But yeah, thanks again. Maybe I'll just leave this statue on a bridge somewhere and freak people out.
Spaghetti!